Have you ever made a decision that everyone around you called a huge mistake? Your family laughed, your friends shook their heads, even complete strangers told you that you were throwing your life away. That's exactly what happened to me. I spent almost every dollar I had on a house that nobody wanted. The roof leaked whenever it rained, the walls were cracked, the yard looked more like a forest than a garden. People drove by just to joke about it. But exactly 1 year later, those same people stood in front of my door with offers I never imagined possible. Before I tell you what happened, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We share inspiring real-life stories every week, and you never know which one might change the way you see the world. Now, let's begin.
My name is Ethan, and I'm 33 years old. For almost 10 years, I worked as an accountant in a small company. Every month, I saved a little money. No expensive vacations, no luxury cars, no designer clothes. My dream wasn't to become rich overnight. I simply wanted a place that truly belonged to me. One Saturday morning, I noticed a tiny listing online. Victorian house needs complete restoration. $38,000. The photos looked terrible. Broken windows, a collapsed fence, paint peeling from every wall. The front porch leaned so badly that it looked ready to fall apart. Still, something caught my attention. The house had character.
It wasn't modern or perfect, but it had beautiful wooden details, tall windows, and a massive oak tree in the front yard. I drove there that afternoon. The neighborhood was quiet. Children rode bicycles down the street. People walked their dogs. Most homes were well maintained, except for one. The abandoned house stood like a forgotten memory. Grass reached my knees. Vines covered half the walls. Birds had built nests inside broken windows. The real estate agent looked embarrassed. "I'm required to show it," she said with a smile. "But honestly, most people leave after 5 minutes." I stayed for almost 2 hours. Every room told a story. The fireplace was covered in dust, but still beautiful. The staircase creaked with every step, yet it remained solid. Sunlight entered through broken windows and illuminated old wooden floors hidden beneath years of dirt. Everyone else saw a disaster. I saw possibility. 3 days later, I signed the papers. When I told my parents, silence filled the room. My father slowly put down his coffee cup. "You bought that place?" My mother looked genuinely worried. My friends reacted even worse. One laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. Another asked if I had lost a bet. Someone created a group chat called Ethan's Haunted Mansion. They sent ghost memes every day. Even strangers had opinions. Neighbors watched from their porches as I carried boxes inside. One elderly woman walked over and whispered, "I hope you know what you're doing." The first week was brutal. The electricity worked only in 2 rooms. Water pressure disappeared every few minutes. The roof leaked in 3 different places. At night, every sound echoed through the empty house. Wind rattled loose windows. Old pipes groaned inside the walls. More than once, I wondered if everyone had been right. Maybe I had made the biggest mistake of my life. But every morning, I opened the front door, looked at the giant oak tree,
and reminded myself why I came. Nothing valuable starts perfect. Some things simply need someone willing to believe in them. And if you've ever taken a chance on something everyone else ignored, leave a comment below. I'd love to read your story. Hiring contractors would cost more than buying the house. So I became my own construction crew. I watched hundreds of videos. I borrowed tools from neighbors. I spent evenings reading repair manuals instead of watching television. The first wall I painted looked terrible. The first shelf I installed fell down after 10 minutes. But every mistake taught me something. Slowly, the house started changing. One room became 2. 2 became 4. Dust disappeared. Fresh paint brightened dark hallways. Broken windows reflected sunlight again. People walking past began slowing down. Some even stopped to watch. One afternoon, an old man introduced himself. "My name is Frank," he said. "I built furniture for 40 years before retiring." The next weekend, he returned carrying a toolbox older than I was. Without asking for anything, he showed me how to restore original wood instead of replacing it. His advice saved me thousands of dollars. Soon, other neighbors joined in. A woman across the street brought homemade cookies. A teenager helped clear the yard after school. Someone donated old bricks. Another person gave me flower seeds. The abandoned house wasn't just becoming a home. It was bringing an entire neighborhood together. About 4 months into the renovation, I decided to remove an old fireplace that had been sealed for decades. Behind loose bricks, I noticed a small metal box. It was covered in dust and rust. Inside, dozens of black and white photographs, handwritten letters tied together with faded blue ribbon, a leather diary, and newspaper clippings dating back almost 100 years. I spent hours reading them. The house had belonged to one family for generations. The diary described birthdays, weddings, difficult winters, and joyful summers. One letter was written by a young soldier during World War II, promising his wife that he would return home to sit beneath the oak tree again. Another contained a child's drawing of the house with the words, "The happiest place in the world." Instead of hiding the discovery, I decided to share it online. Every Sunday evening, I posted one restored photograph and one story from the diary. I expected maybe 20 people to read it. By the end of the first week, 50,000 people had shared the post. The second week brought 500,000 views. Then local newspapers called. Then television stations. Then history pages and home renovation channels. Without realizing it, I had become the owner of the most talked about abandoned house in town. And that was only the beginning. Within weeks, my quiet renovation project became something much bigger. People from different states started sending messages. Some shared stories about restoring old homes. Others said the photographs reminded them of their grandparents. Many simply thanked me for preserving a piece of history instead of tearing it down. Every Sunday, I uploaded a new chapter from the diary. Every Sunday, millions of people waited for it. The comments section became a place where complete strangers encouraged one another. Some even started restoring abandoned homes in their own towns. I never expected a forgotten house to inspire so many people. One afternoon, a local cafe owner knocked on my door. "I've had more customers this month than ever before," she said. "They come here after visiting your house." Soon, the bookstore across the street reopened after being closed for 3 years. A flower shop appeared on the corner. Families began walking through the neighborhood every weekend. The abandoned street slowly came back to life. It wasn't just my house changing anymore. An entire community was changing with it. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us share more inspiring stories from ordinary people who made extraordinary decisions. Exactly 7 months after I bought the property, a black luxury SUV stopped in front of my house. A man wearing an expensive suit stepped out and introduced himself. "My company specializes in historic properties," he explained. "We would like to purchase your house." I smiled politely. I just finished restoring the kitchen. He handed me a business card. "Our offer is $250,000. For a moment, I thought he was joking. I had paid only $38,000, but he was completely serious. He told me the house had become famous online and could be turned into a tourist attraction or boutique hotel. I thanked him and said I wasn't interested. He seemed surprised. Most people would have accepted immediately. As he drove away, my neighbor Frank walked over. "You know," he said with a grin, "a year ago, nobody wanted to step inside that place." We both laughed. Winter arrived, and with it came the first snowfall. The old oak tree outside looked beautiful, covered in white. I decorated the porch with simple lights and placed a wreath on the front door. For the first time in many years, the house looked loved. One evening, I sat beside the restored fireplace, reading another diary entry. It described Christmas in 1952. The family had little money, but they invited lonely neighbors for dinner. Children built snowmen in the yard. The grandfather played piano while everyone sang together. As I looked around the room, I realized something. The walls had witnessed generations of dreams, laughter, and hope. This wasn't simply real estate. It was a piece of someone's life. That realization changed my priorities forever. I no longer measured the house by its market value. I measured it by the memories it continued to create. Spring brought even more surprises. The city announced a major redevelopment project. A new park would be built only 2 blocks away. Walking trails would connect the neighborhood to downtown. A commuter train station was planned within walking distance. Real estate experts suddenly started appearing on local news channels. They called the neighborhood the next hidden gem. Property values increased almost every month. Then, another investor visited. This time, the offer was $410,000. A week later, another company offered $520,000. Friends who once laughed now asked for investment advice. Even my father admitted he had been wrong. "I never understood what you saw," he told me quietly. "I only saw an old building." I smiled. I never bought the house because it was perfect. I bought it because I believed it could become something beautiful. Those words stayed with both of us. Almost exactly 1 year after signing the papers, the local historical society contacted me. After reviewing the diary, photographs, and original architecture, they officially recognized the property as an important historical home. The news spread quickly. Television crews arrived. Visitors lined up outside to take pictures. Schools organized history tours. Children who once avoided the abandoned property now ran across the front lawn during community events. The town held its annual spring festival there for the first time. Looking around at families laughing beneath the giant oak tree, I remembered the little drawing hidden inside the metal box. the happiest place in the world. For the first time, I truly understood those words. The greatest discovery wasn't the diary. It wasn't the photographs, and it certainly wasn't the money. It was learning that one person believing in something forgotten can inspire hundreds of others to believe again. The house changed my life, but maybe, in a small way, it also changed everyone else's. And that's worth more than any offer someone could write on a check. To be continued.
One sunny morning, almost exactly 1 year after buying the house, I received a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. The voice on the other end was calm and professional. "Mr. Carter, we've been following your restoration project for months. We'd like to meet with you." The meeting took place 3 days later. 3 representatives from a national real estate company walked through every room. They admired the restored staircase. They examined the original hardwood floors. They spent almost 20 minutes reading copies of the old diary that I had framed on the living room wall. Before leaving, the oldest man looked at me and smiled. "I've renovated houses for 30 years," he said, "but I've never seen anyone create this kind of emotional connection." Then he handed me an envelope. Inside was an official purchase offer, $875,000. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. 1 year earlier, everyone thought the house was worthless. Now, someone wanted to pay almost $1 million for it. That night, I barely slept. I walked from room to room, thinking about everything that had happened. The cracked walls I had repaired, the porch Frank helped rebuild, the flowers planted by neighbors, the old diary that brought thousands of strangers together. Selling would solve every financial problem I had. I could retire early, travel the world, buy a modern house with no repairs waiting for me. The next morning, my parents visited. My father looked at the offer and said, "If you sell, nobody will blame you." Frank stopped by later that afternoon. He looked around the house quietly before speaking. "You know," he smiled, "houses are strange.
You think you own them, but sometimes they end up owning a little piece of you." His words stayed with me all day. Instead of signing the contract, I called the company. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I have another idea." There was silence. "I don't want to sell the house.
I want people to experience it." Over the next few months, I transformed the first floor into a small community museum dedicated to the history of the neighborhood. Every Saturday, visitors could walk through the restored rooms. They could read copies of the diary. They could see the original photographs displayed on the walls. Admission was completely free. The only request was simple. If today's story inspired you, help someone restore something in their own life. Sometimes that meant an old house. Sometimes it meant a friendship. Sometimes it meant believing in yourself again. More than 20,000 people visited during the first year. Schools organized field trips. Families returned every holiday season. People from different countries signed the guest book. The house that nobody wanted had become the most loved building in town. One afternoon, I found a little girl sitting beneath the giant oak tree. She couldn't have been older than 8. She held a notebook in her hands. "What are you drawing?" I asked. She smiled and showed me the page. It was a picture of the house. Across the top, she had written, "One day, I'm going to save an old house too." I laughed. "Why?" She thought for a moment. "Because everybody deserves a second chance," Those words hit me harder than any business offer ever could. Maybe people are a lot like old houses. Some are damaged, some are forgotten, some have broken windows and cracked walls. But that doesn't mean they have lost their value. Sometimes all they need is someone willing to see what they could become.
A year earlier, people laughed when I bought the worst house in town. They called it a waste of money, a disaster, a mistake. But they were looking at broken windows. I was looking at possibilities. If this story reminded you that patience, hard work, and belief can change everything, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every week, we share inspiring real-life stories that prove ordinary decisions can lead to extraordinary lives. And before you go, answer one question in the comments. Would you have sold the house for $875,000, or would you have kept it? No matter what your answer is, remember this. The greatest investments are not always the ones that make the most money. Sometimes they're the ones that change who you become. See you in the next story.